Hello there, and welcome to Fixing the Sequel Trilogy, the Writers' Room podcast dedicated to fixing the Star Wars sequels. I'm Bryce Quinn, and I'm joined today by our lead writer, Carmelo Keating. Hit us with the progress, Mello.
As we got from the last episode, I'm on a treatment that's kind of not radically different.
It's radical.
But it's radical in some ways. Yeah. So it's like, think of all the progress we've made so far. And I've been like,
forget about it.
And I've gone a different way. So that's how we're going.
Yeah. And we've also got our countdown to our Writers' Room. And to talk more about that, we've got our very own hero of the Australian film industry, Sandro Karayan.
That's
our progress supervisor. Sandro, out of 10, how excited are you for the upcoming Writers' Room?
Oh, out of 10? Oh my God. I'm dreading it and I'm super excited at the same time. So the levels are like around a 7 to 8.
That's right. So we're doing our Writers' Room. It will be off camera. Sorry. We need 4 hours or so of just the five of us arguing and debating back and forth vehemently and aggressively. And we can't have that recorded. So
that being said,
okay,
if you are, if anyone's listening and you want to comment that, hey, we want to listen to your Writers' Room or we want to watch your Writers' Room, comment, because if one person comments, if one person comments, I'm going to push for you so that you can have this content.
Yeah, that one person.
Yeah,
that one person.
I'll comment.
But that's because this is Fixing the Sequel Trilogy. That's what we do here. We are a Writers' Room podcast, and we are going to be trying our best to rewrite The Force Awakens very soon, start to finish, top to bottom, and then delivering it to you guys, the audience, our dedicated listeners who don't exist yet. But we've got a couple of friends who like the show, and we really appreciate them listening in every week. It's been very fun hearing some really nice feedback. But yeah, we're going to continue on with our episode today, which is our episode on the Jedi Order, which is a religious organization of Force wielders that has existed for thousands of years and plays a core role in the Star Wars story. Now to Mello and Sandro with the law.
For over 1,000 generations,
the
Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. So from that, we can basically derive that the Jedi have existed for at least 20,000 years.
Yep.
We know that...
we became Star Lords for a second there. I don't know if you know that podcast.
No, actually no.
It's very good.
With the last 1,000 years prior to the Phantom Menace, the Sith were completely absent because they were, in hiding. And then in the prequels, there were about 10,000 Jedi throughout the galaxy. And a bit more on the Jedi. The primary objective of the Jedi is to keep peace throughout the galaxy and uphold and spread democracy.
And democracy? They're involved in democracy.
They are involved in the idea of democracy, not the institutionalized
and
democracy.
Obviously the enforcement of democracy through violence.
Yeah.
Sandro, do you have anything?
Well, we definitely see that turn into democracy during that High Republic era, blurring that line between what is the Jedi Order and where it sort of interlinks with politics.
Yeah.
And we get into that uncomfortable realm of...
And then it comes to a head in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
It kind of falls to pieces when they become a military force.
Well, them being involved, I didn't find anything on how long they've been tied together with the Senate and the Old Republic. But in talking about democracy, I think it's worth establishing that, they are just... They're a peaceful group who are all about, the collective, the people, and therefore, if there's a leadership, the people deciding on a leadership, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are always linked to the New Republic.
So diving a little bit deeper than that, though, obviously, the history and the lore of the Jedi is something that's been explored a lot over the course of extended universe stuff. People are very, very, very interested in this subject, and it goes back, thousands of years, and there's so many, ancient Sith and Sith armies that are fighting the Jedi and the Jedi armies, and there's the ancient Jedi worlds and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit more about that.
About the Jedi and the Jedi war, Sith
the real deep stuff, kind of the origins
of the Jedi.
Yeah,
that's the thing though. So there's legend stuff.
So there's legend stuff that isn't canon.
Yeah.
What is canon right now?
Nothing.
There's nothing.
Nothing's been written. That's why they're waiting on that
the James Mangold film.
James Mangold film. Yeah. They did a canon reset in which they've started to establish the High Republic, which is only 400 years before Phantom Menace, and everything else is all up in the air. Literally, I went on Wikipedia. You go to Legends, and it's like 1 billion words. And when you go to the Old Republic and the Old Jedi, 1 billion words, and then you go to the new one, it's like some books and comics exist.
There's mentions of it. There's allusions to it.
Yeah.
Because if they say anything hardcore, then it becomes canon.
The oldest thing in canon that is still known is obviously, so they've been around for 25,000 years. And the Prophecy of the Chosen One.
How old is the Prophecy of the Chosen One?
Thousands of
in
years
canon.
Old. Thousands of years old in canon.
Because that's something that we're very interested in exploring in this trilogy as well, is tying the Skywalker saga and the Chosen One prophecy are linked.
Yeah.
So we want to have that play a part in our story as well, which I think they didn't really consider at all in the sequel trilogy with J.J. Abrams and stuff.
Well, what I can say is some other fun facts, unless Sandro wants to.
No, go.
Okay. Some other fun facts. Grey Jedi aren't actually canon.
Yeah, I found this out the other day. I was like, oh, well, there you go. They're so popular that I thought that they were.
Yeah. Other fun things I learned. Yoda wanted to train Leia, not Luke, initially. Yeah. And then Obi-Wan's like, nah. the Jedi rankings. Do we all know, are all familiar with all of the official Jedi rankings?
Oh,
we had a debate about
We
that.
did.
After the debate we had that one time, now I am.
Yeah. So just for a quick rundown, in case anyone else doesn't know, Jedi Initiate, Padawan, Knight, Master, Grandmaster. Metatext stuff? Do we want some metatext?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah?
This is my favorite stuff.
In the original script of Star Wars,
Mhm.
the Jedi were called the Jedi Bendu.
Jedi Bendu.
And then Bendu
Rolls off the tongue.
became, they shortened it. And then Bendu became a character in Rebels. And then some other things. There are a bunch of space wizards, and the Jedi and the Force have religious origins. This is how George Lucas wanted to spread morals, regardless of the specific religion.
Yeah, he
throughout
just
his
thinks
stories.
that religion is a good thing and that it
Well,
is...
to carry morals, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way of giving morals to people and like teaching them stories that have a moral backbone, I guess.
And then one other thing, because this is a great debate. In canon, lightsaber colors have zero meaning.
Which is, I think that's a good thing, honestly, because what I said...
Apart from red, but...
Yeah, obviously red has a pretty clear meaning, but I like the ambiguity of lightsaber meanings because I like the idea that Jedi, especially Jedi and like the High Republic and stuff, got to interpret the meaning of their color of their lightsaber as in their own way, and there's a bunch of different ways you could do it. There's the way that is popular, which is blue is the fighting one, and green is the academic one, and so on and so on. But that's very simplistic, very reductive for an order of people that it's like 25,000. You said I think was the number in the High Republic of how many Jedi there were. So I think there's a lot more interpretations you could go to for something that is so core to your identity as a Force user and as a Jedi.
No, I agree.
Rant over.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for my background stuff.
Just quickly on the metatext stuff as well. Just the idea that George Lucas loved Dune. So Dune happens, and then he's like, "Oh, space wizards are cool," and then he made up Jedi. It's a very clear pipeline from Dune into Star Wars if you have a look at it that way. So that's where it obviously all comes from, and then he was inspired by religion. I think Buddhism was maybe one of his inspirations.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to draw a connection between the Jedi and a real religion, Buddhism makes
he's a huge fan of
Still pretty far
Japanese culture.
Yes, absolutely, still far off.
And especially like samurai cinema, he's a huge fan of, obviously, and that hugely inspired the action and his style and the swords and space samurai and stuff. I don't want to move on because it's very fun to talk about, but we need to because we've got a lot to discuss in terms of what went wrong, Article 1, with the Jedi Order in the sequel trilogy, because we didn't really like what they decided to do, which is burn it to the ground.
There's not a lot to talk about. It doesn't exist.
I've got like 3 specific points.
Literally, I think my first point we'll all share. We don't know what the galaxy know about the Jedi.
Yeah, that is a good point. And we've come up with this as well. Like, what is common knowledge in the galaxy? What do the people know? What do the people know about Vader? And what do the people know about Luke and their relationship and also the Jedi and the Sith? What do they know about it all? And we've got our own answers to these questions.
Obviously, through Rey, we know that she knows that the Jedi exist because Luke Skywalker's a legend in the galaxy. That makes sense. I think that's quite fair, in the tales of who conquered the Empire? Oh, this Jedi, Luke. Oh, what's a Jedi? Actually, when you think about it, kind of funny, that line she says in Last Jedi, they're people who make things float and have lightsabers and stuff. It's like, on a rudimentary level, that's what a lot of people
it would make sense that
think.
That's what you think the Jedi is. But even then, I think that's, I want to take it even further down.
Absolutely.
The common knowledge on the Outer Rim.
Within canon, here's something I do think they got wrong.
Okay.
Was the idea that Rey knew Luke as the Jedi who stopped the Empire. In canon, he's known as the pilot. The ace pilot.
Fair enough.
That took down the Death Star.
And then walked into the second Death Star and came out alive whilst
carrying Darth Vader.
Like carrying, the Imperial officers, if they'd managed to escape in that hangar, would have seen him dragging it, and it's like the Emperor's dead. Man, I'd be fucking scared shitless of Luke Skywalker.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
He's more just seen as like a soldier, like more of a war hero.
Yeah, so very similar, obviously. Like we don't know what the galaxy thinks about them, but my second point is, the younglings and the academy is non-existent. It's just they wrote it out of the story. They didn't want it to be a part of their sequel story, and especially like JJ, he was like, we want Luke to be a failed hermit on a backwater planet kind of thing, or on the first Jedi planet ostensibly. But they never even like really dive into what that means and why he was there, what the purpose was, because he didn't even start the Jedi Temple on that planet, did he?
No, he started on a completely different one, the one that we see in Mando.
Yeah, it's like this bamboo planet.
Yeah, and that's the one where he had his temple where the children were that got burnt down and stuff like that. And then, because in canon, he spent a great deal of time trying to find Jedi and Sith artifacts or mainly Jedi artifacts and learning more about the Jedi and through finding things, which he did. And you see all that stuff in Last Jedi. Of course, we don't know what it is.
The secret Jedi text.
And then eventually finds Arc 2 as well.
Yeah. So he's gone exploring, finding Sith artifacts, Jedi artifacts, and he's found Arc 2, which is the original Jedi planet. But there's no implications of what this means to the story. That should have huge implications on his character and his understanding of the Force and the Jedi and all of their ancient history. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
That sucks.
The fact that he finds that place to escape, it's like, you could have picked anywhere. And if you're going to find that place and you find those texts, you're going to fucking read those texts.
Even
Like,
just the choice, just think about it this way.
Yeah.
He fails as a Jedi Master. All of his younglings either die or flee away from Kylo Ren, who is also his biggest failure. And then his decision to escape and hide away from the galaxy is to go to the first Jedi planet.
I think it's because it's like as the last Jedi, he wants to die, let the Jedi die with him where it began.
I guess.
He's a
Although
very
it's
sentimental guy.
It feels like kind of contradictory
It
at
does.
the same time.
It feels
Oh, yeah.
contradictory, yeah.
It's very strange.
It's a weird choice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And now we go into the segment where we list other planets that would have been better to escape to. Here we go.
Dagobah.
Yeah, there we go.
No, they couldn't have done Dagobah. They're going to cop
No.
out. But on your point, Sandro, the Luke sacred texts. What even? It's one of those things that really bugs me about The Last Jedi because he's so obsessed with them, and yet he hates the Jedi Order and he wants
Yeah.
to not be a part of it. He wants to let it die.
I've got a bit of a pitch for Sacred Text, but that's down the
It's
line.
later?
So
Oh
we
yeah,
can
no,
talk about it.
as a fix and stuff. But
We can
as we see it in the movies, it's just silly.
It makes no sense that you'd read these scriptures that would be so true to the good of the Jedi and be like, this needs to be destroyed. What needed to be destroyed was what the Jedi became by the end of Revenge of the Sith,
Which was
Yeah.
destroyed.
which was destroyed.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like the sacred Jedi text would be so vastly different. It would be about peacekeeping. It would be more about giving into your emotions. I would feel it like we're talking about texts that are written generations, thousands of years back.
Yeah, you think
Before-
they would be less monastic and stringent with their kind of doctrine
I
in
feel
terms
like,
of like you're allowed to feel a bit more and
I feel so, or at the very least, I feel like Luke would teach it that way anyway.
He's the compassionate Jedi, you know. He's the emotional Jedi, as we've previously established. I'd like to think that he overcame. I did like lots of research on this week. One of the shortcomings of the Jedi in the terms of the prequels was like the fact that the stuff with emotions is open to interpretation. There's a
Yeah.
few different ideas of what it should be. Is that the outright suppression and therefore.
yeah,
You
there's
know?
this idea of like mastery of emotions.
Yeah. Or is it more, and this is where I think Luke would more align with, I think it's the fact it's like, definitely, care about people, yeah, sure, rejoice in them becoming the Force. But I think it's more just knowing it's like, okay, so someone has died and that makes you really sad, and just knowing how to like be at peace. Not
Yeah.
to suppress things. Feel the emotions. It's human, it's natural.
Yeah.
Once you shut it out and you try to refuse it, that's when, some sort of like resentment and anger.
It's the
would
difference
creep in.
between shutting out emotions, like the goal is to be emotionless,
Or
as opposed
accepting
to accepting and moving through them
Absolutely.
in a
Yeah.
healthy way.
Yeah. Other problems with the Jedi as we see them in the sequels. Force ghosts can't affect the real world.
Okay, I like it though.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
But it
It's
goes
really
against
cool, but it goes against everything.
everything they say in Empire Strikes Back. If you go, fight Vader, I can't interfere
Mm.
because he can't. He can't do it.
See, I don't like Luke lifting the X-wing out of the water in Rise of Skywalker,
Yeah.
but I do love Yoda summoning lightning because it's a part of the natural world and it feels connected in a way.
The thing is that when they go to become the Force, one
Yeah.
with the Force, they are part of the cosmic Force. They know they no longer have a bridge to the life Force, so they just can't do. They can
I
talk
thought
to
that
people
wasn't
in the
true.
real
I thought
world.
because if you're in the cosmic force, that's it. You're not like connected to anything. But if you are a force ghost, you still are like retaining your consciousness.
you
from
retain
the light
sentience,
force.
but it doesn't mean to do stuff.
Okay, I think it's cool.
You just I don't know.
I think that specific
You're not
moment
there.
is
You
cool.
can't do things there.
Yeah.
Do lightning in your own realm. Go to your cosmic Force realm and make some lightning. You want to make some lightning. As cool as it is, but
I think it's incredibly cool and it's incredibly funny and it's an incredibly wholesome moment. I sent like our group chat the video the other day of Mark Hamill walking onto the set
It's beautiful. Seeing Yoda for the first time
Yeah.
in years.
and like Frank Oz is under there
And he's like talking to him in the voice.
Yeah.
That's how he walks in the set. Is he was greeted by Yoda first and then Frank Oz?
It's so
beautiful.
cute. It's lovely. And yeah, it's a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment getting to see like a puppet Yoda again as
Yeah.
well. But it's one of those things that we get in the sequels where it's a moment that feels right.
But if you think about it,
when
a
you
little bit
think
deeper,
about
yeah.
it and you look at the context of everything else, it kind of just like makes no sense.
My final point is Luke forswore the Jedi Order and the teachings of the Jedi. What does this tell us about his relationship to the Force? So it's just a big question mark for me. Why did he forswear the teachings of the Jedi after losing his temple and losing Kylo Ren or losing Ben Solo?
So I think we spoke about this in the Luke episode. It makes no sense.
Like none of us really believe that he would ever do that.
No.
Just because it's Luke,
his first step in wanting to learn more. So he defeats Palpatine, defeats Vader, needs to establish a new Jedi Order, learn as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Talk to Yoda, talk to Ben
Obi-Wan.
Kenobi. Yeah. And I think this is starting to border on to the new segment, but I think that he would take the mistakes that, they made in the height of their power and acknowledge, okay, that is a real great time for them. What are the Jedi really about? What was the 20,000 years about? Let's look at that.
All right. Well, I think that leads us perfectly into Article 2. What would we do different? Our fixed pitches for our rewrite of the sequel trilogy. Who wants to start? Melo, you seem very keen.
I am very keen. I want to jump back a little bit in time. Okay, so I want to talk about the galaxy for a sec. So we've spoken a bit before about what you know about the Jedi and your opinions in particular on the Jedi depends on your circumstance. If you were a person who has seen Vader or the Inquisitors in action, if you're aware that they are.
Because a lot of people didn't even know that they were Jedi.
Yeah, what do you even know them as? But say you do. Say you know them as like, oh, they're evil Jedi. No one knows what a Sith is. And they're like, evil Jedi, man, I hate the Jedi. Or if it's, you saw that and then you see Luke, this guy who brandishes a lightsaber, who other people call a hero, and you're like, no, the last time I saw someone do that, they killed all my family. No, thanks. And then flip side, Luke saves you and your planet. It's like, oh, cool, a hero. But here's the thing. So we've been talking a lot in our idea about the cleansing of knowledge, the cleansing of from the Empire. And the Empire is destroyed of doing this scorched earth policy, trying to destroy knowledge. There is a limit, though, to exactly what Palpatine can destroy, because, and we know this from A New Hope itself.
Because he can't destroy a first-hand perspective.
Exactly.
No matter. Yeah.
Luke's generation, out in Tatooine himself, knows that the Clone Wars was a thing that happened.
Ah.
He knows that the Jedi Knights were a thing. Han even knows that people believe in the Force.
Yeah.
He doesn't, initially believe in it himself. Older generations would actually remember the Jedi. And if you didn't live in key Imperial space where you're not, brainwashed to, just forget those villains.
You have like people like Din Djarin who people that have had the Clone Wars critically affect their lives.
Yeah.
Because it was a galactic-wide war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The fact that Din doesn't know what the Jedi are and
It's
Mandalorian
stupid.
is
It's ridiculous.
very
It is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. But that's the
that's
thing.
funny.
It's like you can't erase time and memories and first-hand knowledge. You can still try and create all that confusion and stuff like that.
I never thought about that, how he directly experienced the Clone Wars as a kid, but doesn't know who the Jedi are.
Yeah.
So
That
silly,
is
especially
weird.
when you consider he's then a foundling for Mandalorians.
Yeah, who were
Huge
very...
part of Mandalorian culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mandalorian culture, even like their culture and history, yes, but even in that war, were directly, tied to the Jedi and had relations with the Jedi.
So that's my jumping off point is the fact of like knowledge. It's in this time now, it's a bit more time has passed. It's your individual experience, and if you're older, you still do remember a time. And I think one of Luke's great goals would be about re-establishing this narrative.
Yeah,
What to the galaxy of who they are, what their objective is, what their message is.
telling the galaxy,
Yeah,
trying to change that narrative, trying to change that story.
absolutely.
I think
and reverse some of the propaganda.
Yeah.
I feel like a safe rule of thumb is, and we get a little bit. I like this because we get a little bit in Fallen Order when you first meet Merrin, or a time you get to a point where you're talking to Merrin. Fallen Order, spoilers by the way.
It's been out long enough.
It's been out long enough. Where she's like, oh, it was a killer brandishing one of these, and she's holding Cal's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Came and slaughtered all my whole village, and she held great resentment towards it. She's referencing General Grievous.
Yeah.
So it's a good rule of thumb is that because the Force is such a undescribable, thinkable thing to some people, especially in a galaxy where you got people with flamethrowers on their arms, a bunch of other ridiculous things. The Force is kind of just something you see, and it's like, well, what could that be? It's up for interpretation. What isn't up for interpretation is a fucking lightsaber.
Yeah.
A village and youngling slaying lightsaber.
So it's safe to say if somebody sees somebody with a lightsaber, the general assumption is that it's a Jedi.
Okay.
It's
And because
kinda-
the Sith are a lot more rare and have been a lot more rare for a long time.
And I think that was something that it was a thing in the High Republic. I'm not sure if it's old canon or if it's Legends now, but they never liked using their lightsabers. It was more of an ornamental piece
Okay.
in the High Republic. It was used as last resort.
Yeah, it's for defense.
Yeah.
In a lot, you try and negotiate your way out of it.
That's why there's some cool stuff about Dooku canon where he was kind of obsessed with the lightsaber techniques and fighting styles, and he built his hilt to be more proficient at fighting, and it was kind of shunned at the time because they were in that High Republic era where it's
he would have been raised in that High Republic era where it was very much a time of peace and there wasn't any brewing conflict.
I've got a bit more on Luke. So I see the purpose of his life as not only being, as it was in the original trilogy, redeem his father, help defeat the Sith, but now about ensuring the longevity of his his family, the longevity of the Jedi and their presence in the galaxy and spreading that, and ensuring that a figure like Palpatine cannot be allowed to return. And I think that's a very tall order. It's a very heavy burden that he carries. I've got some more pictures on his like sort of new Jedi Order.
Yeah, that's something we're very
I
interested
think-
to talk about.
Yeah.
Luke would be less obsessed. Oh wait, are we in the pitching area?
Yep, pitching,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Forgetting which area we're in. I feel like Luke would be less obsessed with the history of the Jedi past the Jedi texts. In the canon we currently have, he goes off on adventures and he looks for like old Sith artifacts and whatnot. I just don't see him
Mainly Jedi. I feel like
Sith.
I wanna
like,
say that that's-
mainly Jedi artifacts.
yeah.
But I don't see him being so obsessed with that, especially if he's trying to build a new order.
I see what you mean, and I have a sort of pitch to fill that gap in the story, because I very much see Luke's number one focus is building the Jedi Academy, the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And number two focus maybe diving into some of that history and wanting to learn and recuperate some of the history knowledge. The person who can do that though, not Luke, Law Santeca. With the Jedi acolyte character we've talked about a lot, I feel like perfectly fits that gap.
I came up with an idea of like how he sort of gets that history, and it still involves the Jedi texts.
Okay.
Wasn't involving Law Santeca. I do think that's really interesting. I'll
Yeah.
spitball my pitch right now.
Go for it.
And we're gonna change. We're gonna go back in time. We're gonna go all the way back in time.
Wow.
We're going past the sequels. We're going
Whoa.
past the original trilogy.
Is
my
that
God.
is that
We're going
is that,
all the way
is
back.
that Nick Cage's Superman?
Oh my God.
Oh my god.
That was very, very
We're going
good.
past Nick Cage's Superman, and we're going all the way back to Return of the Jedi.
Wait, no, dinosaurs gone too far.
No, wait, no, not Return of the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge
That's
of the-
where we're going.
Okay.
So 2005.
Oh
but-
my God, look at all these jeans.
Oh my God. All this denim. Oh my God. And in Revenge of the Sith,
Yep.
we see Obi-Wan and Yoda retaking, for maybe a very short period, the Jedi Temple, killing all the clones, and sending out a warning message of, don't fucking come here.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trap.
It's a trap. And whilst there, I think it only makes sense that they would take some of the
Stuff from the
artifacts,
Jedi Archive.
some of the stuff that are very crucial to the Jedi Order. So they leave with the ancient Jedi texts,
Okay.
and Luke finds them in Obi-Wan's hut. Very similar to how, like, the old lore, I'm not sure if it's still the current lore, where he finds the lightsaber pieces from Obi-Wan's hut, and that's how he makes...
Well, yeah, I
green
think it's
lightsaber.
he definitely finds like a chest of stuff left for
Yeah.
Luke in it when he goes back, and then Boba Fett's there. They have
Yeah.
a fight in his hut, and he manages to get away with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
And yeah, he's got his journal, and I think in one of his journals he details how to build a lightsaber, which is why Luke's in canon lightsaber is so similar to Obi-Wan's.
Obi-Wan's, yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
Um,
So that is canon.
Yeah.
Nice.
And yeah, I feel like it would just make sense that he'd also find ancient Jedi texts there.
Because
That's
if he
a-
had some text, yeah.
I like that idea. I think that's a good way to kind of tie it together. But I think that might be a good jumping off point for Luke, where it's like, here's the extent of what the Jedi Archive was. Here's the thousands of years of information and history that we had in this repository of knowledge that was destroyed. And here's like the level of knowledge you could potentially dive into if you began to research. Because I don't think maybe like one book, he's like, oh, this is cool. This is a cool
I was
ancient
more
book.
just thinking like the amount that he has in...
Yeah, so that like
book.
little stack
It's
of
like
books. That seems
5
reasonable
books
to me,
max.
but I still
Yeah.
feel like there's that potential within the story, and especially for a character like Law Santeca to be, intermittently leaving the Jedi Temple and coming back with more information and more history, because it's him and Luke and that's it, who know the history of the Jedi Order and are a part of that culture and that religion and want to create it and bring it back into the world and the galaxy.
What I do really like about Law Santeca,
And if you're
in-
not sure, Law Santeca is the old guy at the start of Force Awakens,
yeah,
who
who just gets killed.
in canon
Yeah.
is a Jedi acolyte.
Yeah, he's part of the Church of the Force, which
Yeah.
one of my favorite new things they had in canon, because it's in Rogue One as well. That's what.
It's also in Jedi Survivor, the
Yeah.
new Jedi game that came
Yeah.
out. There's like a big cult. It's not a cult, but
Yeah.
it's like a religious group, and they're non-Force users, but they
Yeah.
still believe in the Force.
Yeah, and two members in on what was that planet? The one that gets blown up in
Jeddah.
Jeddah. Yep. Baze Malbus and Chirrut Imwe, they're a part of the Church of the Force.
Yes.
And I want to
Chirrut.
say, I love the idea of a Force acolyte.
Yeah.
Church of the Force, I hate the name.
You don't like
It's a
it?
shit
Oh,
name.
okay,
That is
give
a
it a new
shit
name.
Yep, sorry, Rogue One. That's a shit name.
what-
Sorry, Gary Wood.
Yeah. Give it a new name. It's called the Hut. I don't know. It's called. We're members of the Hut.
The Hut.
The Hut. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Hut.
They have their little. It's not a church.
102.1.
It's a hut. Yeah. And they've got a space podcast. I like the idea of the Church of the Force. That there
Yeah.
are people who are like, oh, the Jedi are all gone. Nah, fuck that. We're going to find a way.
We still believe that
Yeah.
there is this force of good out there, and that actually ties into one of my key things that I wanted to talk about. The idea, and like thematically, I always talk about thematically on the show what I want to do with some of the elements. Obviously, I want the First Order to be Nazis, because they are. And the New Republic is kind of our democracy as it stands right now, especially, we see a lot of the stuff in the United States and what happens over there. I want the Jedi Order and the Force and all that to be this beacon of hope. This idea that there can be peace and happiness and comfort within the galaxy. That's the goal for me.
I imagine like Force acolytes that would work with Lor San Tekka being less like I have to believe in every word of scripture kind of thing, and
Yeah.
they're more like geeky architects that are like, oh, we just want to reclaim this history and we want to find all this
Architects,
lost
are you
history.
archaeologists?
Yes, archaeologists. Did I say
No, no, no.
architects?
He says architects.
I
yeah.
said-
They build cool
They
temples
make
too.
fucking good temples.
Yeah, they make awesome temples.
Yeah.
yeah.
This guy's so fucking brain dead because he's just working on set all the time. We can't tell you what set. It's an Australian production that's shooting right now, and he's just working full time. And he's every time I talk to him, he's like, I'm like half alive right now."
This is all my life energy is like
Yeah, and then I'm like, "All right, well,
as
get up,
much as I
get
can
up at
push
9
out,
a.m. to come into this fucking podcast.
as much
and
as I
shoot
can
this."
unleash in an hour of recording.
Exactly.
And then I go back to being a corpse.
So these space architects did a great job building the temples, and then what you're saying about Lor San Tekka.
Yeah, no, I think the people working with Lor San Tekka would obviously still believe.
They would be less religious zealots and more nerds and
Yeah,
archaeologists
more
who are
nerds.
really interested in the history.
They just want to find the history. They
Okay.
want to reclaim this lost history. A lot of stuff was destroyed after like this Operation Cinder-esque thing that we've been talking about.
And if the Empire got word of these little sects of this sects, SECTS,
Yes. Sex.
sectus.
So
If
yeah,
the Empire found out people were having sex.
Okay, actual spoiler warning for Jedi Survivor. This is the more recent Jedi game that came out. They actually explore that exact
Yeah, right.
concept in the game,
And then
where
they try and shut it down.
where Vader tries to find like
Yeah.
this temple.
And we won't say anything more because Mello needs to play the fucking game.
Mello
I'll
does
play
need to
the
play
game.
these fucking games.
I'll
They're
play the
so good.
games.
Anyways, we're talking too much about video games now.
Okay, so I think we're all in alignment with the idea that, Luke would see, okay, what's one of the real shortcomings of what happened to the Jedi?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Shortcoming of the Jedi Order and the fall of the Republic.
Yeah, they linked themselves to the Republic. Fuck that. Don't
Okay.
do that.
So
Don't link
does
yourself
that
to
mean
politics.
that
Yeah.
we think that the Jedi should be an independent force of peacekeeping wizards who live in the galaxy
Yes.
and are not tied to the government?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
where the key form of conflict with the galaxy versus the Jedi and Ben versus the Jedi can come in.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so there'd be a great, debate, maybe not an actual debate, but great, top point of interest in the Senate to be like, okay, so the Jedi are currently operating freely without permission in New Republic space, doing their own thing. When we call on them, they won't act, and if they deem it not worth,
This is very
When
much
we-
shades of Avengers Civil War.
yeah, and when we don't call on
Civil
them,
War.
they'll go act anyway when they see fit.
Yeah,
They
no,
can't
like,
just be allowed to do
the
that.
government wants jurisdiction over this powerful group of space wizards.
And
Yeah.
that's actually what aligned the Jedi with the Republic initially in the first place.
because they're like, here's this huge galactic war. We need your help, kind of thing. Is that
No, more of just like you're operating independently, bringing peace, and you're disrupting like sort of like how our flow kind of goes.
Yeah, no, yeah, our stupid bureaucratic chain
Yeah.
of delay.
There
Yeah.
needs to be like conversation and there needs to be organization, and they saw that as an advantage because they thought they could unify these two forces to make
Right.
a high republic, to make this like beautiful time of peace.
Okay.
It
This
works
is
for a
very
tiny
much
bit.
building to a big question for me, but Mello,
Yeah,
continue
so I'm
with your thought.
saying no to that. And
Okay.
then with that, I think, there would be a real point of conflict for Ben.
Yeah.
I think Ben would see, the Jedi trying to spread peace, it would be about peaceful resolution of things. So if there's this thing happening and Ben sees that in the galaxy, he's like, we can't do
I'm 20. I know how to
nothing-
use my lightsaber. I want to go out and do it.
Yeah, and it's patience. There is
if
a
you
right
see
way
bad
to do
things
this.
happening, you don't stop
Yeah.
it. You feel guilty.
And it's key that Luke is not inactive. His approach to situations is completely different. But, that cause for conflict for
But
Ben there.
his ideology is like against the current state of things. Like Ben thinks we should be doing more to act, and the reality is that the New Republic is very new, and they're hesitant to let that happen. Is that what you're saying?
I think Luke is so focused on bringing the reputation of the Jedi back like a positive state that he's even scared to act on
In
his
case something
emotions.
bad happens.
In case they see it as like a threat, or
Okay.
they see it as the Jedi disrupting the sort of state of affairs, and in which case it would just like ruin their reputation even more.
Don't know if I can agree.
Okay.
What is your
just-
take? Because I'm still
sorry.
very confused about what you're trying to say.
My take is that the Jedi do what they want.
Okay.
When Luke he's wiser now, when he deems it that, we need to maintain peace here, the
Okay.
Jedi will act.
Is that causing conflict with the New Republic?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because
Okay.
they're doing it
And
without
that's what
telling
they're
anyone,
doing
without
right
asking
now.
questions.
So
Yeah,
it's basically, to me, it would seem like Luke and Ben are doing that. It's them too, because no one else is old enough to be doing that.
I've also
Change the timeline.
well, no, I think that there are still some people who are perhaps not outside of the range, the age range of being able
Somewhere
to
like
help.
14, 15, 16. Around
Yeah,
there.
I think they'd find an agreeable age where Luke's able to be like, yeah, fuck it, kid.
You're old enough,
You
you
can
can
come.
drink.
You can come into danger now
Yeah.
because it's not danger because it's peaceful.
I mean, if they're a
you know?
Padawan, I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility, for like 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds.
I'm
feel
so
like-
happy to keep Ben as the oldest. I just,
Yeah.
there can be someone a year younger than him.
Okay.
I'm just not sure. I feel like it would still be like that partner system, that master and apprentice kind of system.
Yeah.
I don't see him just sending out Padawans
Yeah.
to go resolve problems.
Not sending Padawans. I think he'd have to lead it off himself. I don't think that he has the luxury of just having himself and one apprentice. He's got to be the master for
Yeah.
all of these people. At the moment, he's trying to reestablish.
That's true. There
So-
are no other Jedi Masters. He has to be the master to all of
Yeah.
these young Padawans.
Yeah. So how about a strength in numbers thing? Where it's like, okay, there's bickering between.
Whenever we roll up as a squad.
There's like 4 of them.
It's a
You know,
squad of
it's like
young Jedi and
and
one
they're
old
looking-
man.
And
Yeah,
he
look at
uses
all
it as
these
like
symbols.
a teaching lesson.
Okay.
Like he's taking like 2 or 3 each time to
Yeah.
resolve a conflict, and he's
Ah.
still doing the main work as
Okay.
a master would.
Mm.
But he's just like.
But he's
this
got
is-
like 3, assistants, interns, you might say,
Yeah.
coming along to watch the work go down.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. That's interesting.
unpaid interns, just like sitting there,
Yeah, and then
giving him coffee and stuff.
yeah, one of the other quick things I'll say about Ben, so he doesn't like that all the time. He doesn't like that there. Maybe he sees him as slow to act. He just wants to go in guns blazing, bit of a Han Solo-esque type. The other one would be I think, had the idea that Luke has the mistakes of the Jedi at the heart of their power in the prequels at the forefront of teachings and the learning from your mistakes thing. And I think that Ben would struggle with that because he would want to maybe see, or he'd either see those Jedi as weak because that then, led to their downfall, or he'd want to be like, no, Jedi have to be perfect. I cannot allow room for mistakes. And that really would be motivated by the fact that he is the person who has an immense feeling of pressure. We've spoken about that expectation on him before.
Well, we are talking a lot about Ben. I do want to focus on Luke and the Jedi and Luke's perspective. So I like when you're talking about like his teachings and he putting at the forefront this idea of, here's how the Jedi failed in the old days,
Yeah.
and here's what we're going to do different kind of thing. I like that. This does lead me to a very big question, though. So what we've set up now, what we've been talking about for a bit, is this idea that the Jedi for 1,000 years maintained peace by being independent from the government, right? They were just a force of peacekeeping wizards.
No. When he says for the past 1,000 years,
Okay.
that 1,000 years is High Republic.
High Republic.
They were not independent.
Oh, so before that, they were independent from
Yeah, so
bureaucracy.
like 19,000 years.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so 19,000 years
Yeah.
of peace.
And it wasn't exact peace.
Wasn't exact. There's like
There's-
wars and extended law.
Well,
and stuff,
in
right?
extended laws, there's a bunch of wars. There's Sith wars. There's Mandalorian wars. There's so much war.
And canon has nothing.
So it's not like they were keeping exact peace before that.
I think that's important that you just said that canon has nothing, because I don't think that the message and the final result should be that the Jedi should be separate from the government as a force of peacekeeping wizards who act independently, because that is something that could never happen in the real world. And I want there to be some kind of link up thematically and message wise of like, here's what the Jedi represent and here's why they succeed at the end of our story. Because I just don't, I don't see how that matches with this idea of them being separate from the government.
I think when you talk about thematically how things should line up, and I've been thinking about this a lot, I'm not sure exactly where, and this is the purpose of this episode, is to figure out where exactly our Jedi Order aligns. And we've talked about how the idea of a great Jedi is not really canon, but it's sort of what we're gunning for, that idea of balance for Rey at the end of the trilogy.
Yeah, and balance of the Force and balance
And
of
I
the
think
galaxy.
Luke's closer to getting there than the previous Jedi were.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
I think fundamentally, what should make a good Jedi is the words that Obi-Wan gives Luke right after Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen die, when he's trying to decide whether he should go towards the Death Star, save Princess Leia, or whether he should stay at home, live his life on the farm. And he tells Luke, you must always do what you feel is right.
I don't know. That seemed like a loaded statement from him in that moment. It seems like you
It's
must do what you feel is
definitely
right,
a
of
loaded
course.
statement from him, but I think the phrase in itself translates the idea that there is always friction, there is always going to be a force that you have to fight, but it's your choice really whether you can go and face it or not.
My thing is, big picture wise, because that's individual. That's like an individual, human to human. Big picture, there is a massive galactic government
Mhm.
and a potential force of peacekeeping wizards. How do these two things intertwine? How do they mesh together? And is there a possible way that it works?
They have, and it failed.
And quickly, I don't have an answer to this. This is something I've been struggling with in the writing.
I struggle trying to answer the question because they did it, it failed,
Yeah.
and the whole story was a story of corruption.
Yes.
Well, why wouldn't you try to learn from that?
Yeah.
Why
No,
would
I
you
agree.
why would you repeat that mistake?
Melo, you got anything?
Yeah, I do. One of them's wrong.
What do you mean one of those wrong?
One of those two things is wrong. If it's a question of, big government or this this group who spread peace
Right.
and morals, and not to make this a whole government versus religion, because I will separate the Jedi from religion in this instance. It's, I like the idea that, they do represent morals. Morals are a good thing. I think that, the Jedi should be, there's the message in terms of that. The Jedi transcend stupid government shit.
See, I don't like that because, and I don't want to be contrarian. This is just a very difficult topic to be constructive because it's just so nebulous. But that's going to read because the Jedi is straight up a symbol for religion. If you say that, if we write that into a script, people will be like, oh, so religion is better than government. That's how that reads symbolically. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. And maybe we need to make some sort of separation there in evolution of the Jedi. But morals.
Never. I haven't seen it like that. I see the religious aspect purely coming from places of faith and not really anywhere else.
No, but it's a large faction. It is a huge organization of people who come together and say, here's this religion we believe in, and here's what we're going to do to enforce that religion on the galaxy.
I mean, you can say the same thing about politics.
That's my point. And how do these massive groups come together and cooperate? Because we've seen it fail. Have we seen it succeed? Has there been a point where
no? What I'm saying is, it's more of an idea of trying to merge two political ideals together than trying to merge a religion and a political ideal together.
You're saying that the Jedi are more of a political faction in this sense, if they're a large group?
I think when you're talking about them on the wider scale as a peacekeeping organization.
The Jedi that we see in the High Republic, the canon Jedi, that's a political faction in your mind?
When you talk about it of like an organization that's dedicated to trying to keep peace, that's not a religion. That's just an organization. That's just like a political system.
Forget how I'm talking about it. I'm talking about how it exists in the High Republic.
Right.
And that's a religion, right? Is that a political faction or a religion? What do you think?
I think they teach like morals in the sense of like a very religion-esque aspect, but I don't know. I don't really see it as a religion.
Mello?
Maybe that's part of the evolution that we need, is to make it seem like more than a religion. If you got these people in this trilogy or part of this Church of the Force, and people look at them and like, I don't know. I want the Jedi to be able to spread morals without it being this very rigid, Jedi code thing. We haven't even spoken about the Jedi code.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I would like them to be this shining beacon of hope of good and teaching, these good morals without it being this religious thing, because I think that's better in the Star Wars universe than government.
I don't see it merging with politics.
I want to separate.
You want them to be separate.
In this great debate of what's the better way in this Star Wars universe of, and how that relates to real world, government and this sect of peacekeepers. Sect of peacekeepers all the way.
All right, so we're going to create the Jedi, and they're going to be the Avengers, and they're going to operate outside of the government. I love it.
The problem then becomes, how do we end on a system where those can coexist?
Exactly. That's my big question. And that's the question I do not have an answer to.
It's this
debate.
And it's a very valid question.
Yeah. No, it's tricky stuff, and I don't think we're going to come to an answer today. But there's the beginning of that debate that I'm sure will probably last a very long time until we figure out what we're going to do, writing-wise. But yeah, I think we can maybe move on to, like you said just now, Mello, the Jedi Code, and our interpretation of that.
The Jedi Code. Anyone know the Jedi Code?
No.
I
read it once.
It was on the poster for Attack of the Clones or something. I actually don't have it up right now.
On the poster for Attack of the Clones?
I think it was on the poster of the Attack of the Clones.
We'll let Mello cook.
It was like, it's like the code. It's like tranquility, not anger.
And then there's a Sith version that's very similar, but it flips it all in the reverse kind of thing. And makes it like a dark, an evil version.
You guys try and vamp for a bit.
I'll
look up the Jedi Code. I found it. Never mind. There's some mantras. Okay, so there is no emotion, there is peace.
Yeah.
There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. I think that's a loaded.
I think Luke is going to
bullshit.
Have to throw that out the window if he wants the Jedi to come back.
I would love that. I think it's stupid.
My thing is though, that existed for in canon thousands of years as the Jedi code that they stuck to.
So I think that's the key distinction. Maybe.
Yeah.
In his one, he's like.
When he says
there's
the
a lot
new
of
Jedi Order, he really means we're not following the old code.
I do think it is a new order.
Yeah, a lot of the old principles and teachings are stuff that worked, the good morals, the how to train yourself in the Force, how to use it, how to be one with the Force, but not this. This is the thing that makes it a cult. This is the thing that makes it religious, is committing yourself to these words.
No, I agree.
Remove that, and you just have this.
You're still teaching good morals, and you're still teaching faith in something, but the faith in something isn't inherently trying to be like this zealotous religious cult, trying to teach peace
and
how to share that.
There's a key distinction between faith in religious things in the real world and faith, the Force in Star Wars. We're the Force is real.
Yes,
Star Wars.
it is.
It's not a thing that, you know,
And
even
I
though
think
people.
that's another thing I've been coming back to is that radically changes any form of writing we could do that ties it back to the real world, because we don't have magic here.
Yeah,
So-
and I'm okay with that separation.
Yes.
You know, we don't need to talk
Separation, like, it's good to have separation. You don't always have to have a complete.
doesn't have to have a direct world like analog. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like
Yeah.
something match for match, you know, in
Yeah.
our world.
So
I
because-
totally agree.
So I don't
When
think
you
it's
do
a,
that, you fall into that trap of making everything too political.
exactly. Yeah.
I don't think it's a belief versus not belief thing. I think it is a hard fact. So it's like acknowledging the fact or not acknowledging. Is there anything worth looking at in there though? do you think?
My note for it was it's all about like no emotion, no passion, all these kinds of things.
Stupid.
And I think, you know, that ultimately leads to this combination of the Jedi and politics were intertwined at the end of the High Republic and they fell. Lucas obviously thinks that was a mistake and a bad thing and led to that fall because of that corruption from Darth Sidious.
Yeah.
But as another part of that, they also rejected emotions and feeling. And it seems to me that Lucas was condemning that. It seems to me that Lucas wasn't maybe the biggest fan of like, oh, you know, Anakin was supposed to have no emotions
Yeah.
and that's why he became evil.
Yeah.
Because he was manipulated by Darth Sidious, who was like, no, feel your
Yeah.
emotions. And that's the evil part. So
No, I think he was both condemning the teachings of the Jedi for not feeling, but also condemning the way you act on your emotions.
so
Choosing-
both are bad.
Yeah, both of that.
Yeah.
It's like you can like suppress violence and you can still have it build up inside of you.
Yeah.
But that's only going to unleash a stronger rage.
You know what? I actually fucking love that. I love the idea that Lucas was like, yeah, no, these people are shunning their emotions entirely, and these people are embracing their emotions to the point where they only care about themselves. It's selfishness incarnate. So
And that's in the Sith code, if we can read that.
Oh, let's have a look at the Sith code.
yeah, so it goes very similar, but like we said, a bit like inverted almost.
Yeah. Go to an ad break.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think that's a really interesting take, and I think that's something we've
We
already
get
kind
that-
of landed that we wanted to explore.
We get that in like Attack of the Clones when like there's like that cheesy dialogue between Padme and Anakin where he's like the Sith are selfish, but the Jedi are selfless to the point of uncaring. Like it's like selfless love.
So it's like they found it's like the Sith are like, what's the Jedi code again? Oh, let's just do the opposites. Peace is a lie. There is only passion.
Wow.
Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall set me free.
I think that's baller as hell. I think
is
they made
pretty
a
cool.
very cool version of the Jedi code.
That's a really
That's how they
good
think of
like.
themselves.
We want you to join the Sith.
You want to be free? Yeah.
I much prefer that code. That's rad. Not that I like agree with it. I just think that's a cooler code.
Man,
I
being
think-
so committed to freedom in a really aggressive, hostile way. Does that sound familiar
I
at all?
wonder what that could be similar
Oh,
to. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So obviously we have those two codes, and we have this idea that we've had for a very long time now with this rewrite that we want to land on this place of there is a balance between the two. You can feel your emotions and you can make mistakes and you can fail, but you can come back and try and be better and make yourself a better version of yourself than you were yesterday and constantly fight against evil and constantly trying to make the world a better place. And
And I
that's
think-
what the Jedi should represent.
I'm curious how you guys feel because I feel like Luke's a step closer to getting there than we've probably ever seen.
I agree, and that's why another thing I wanted to talk about is that episode of The Mandalorian where we see him with Grogu, and the more I think about it, the more I hate it.
Yeah,
Because
no,
it
it's
doesn't
awful.
feel like he's made any progress.
I
It doesn't
remember
feel
getting
like he stepped
so
further than
mad
the
when
Jedi
that came
doctrine.
out.
Yeah.
I was so mad.
And
when
I
saw it.
wasn't, and I was like, "What are you talking about, Sandro? It's fine." But the more we've dived into this podcast and talked about it, and
Seems like so against his character, against like what he would learn to be.
yeah, because he learns to love his father despite everything, and then brings him back to the light. Learns forgiveness, moves on like past all of this negativity, and then goes right back to anyway, Grogu, hard left or right, you know,
Yeah.
you tiny baby.
You tiny baby. He's like 50.
Yeah, he's twice his age. Okay, so then I've got a pitch here. So if the Sith is about, taking those human emotions, really leaning into them, being selfish, doing everything for yourself. And if the misinterpretation of the Jedi stuff is about, taking what makes you human and just putting that aside.
Are you asking where we want to land?
I'm saying, or I think I'm saying where perhaps we should land. See, so put this out there, see what you guys reckon. It's about acknowledging what makes you human, acknowledging those emotions, acknowledging that, you're going to feel those things regardless. And it's where it's wiser, where it's better for everyone. It's learning to be better than them. So it's, in the instance of Luke on Dagobah feels his friends in pain, it would be knowing that they're in pain, but knowing I'm not ready to help them. I want to help them, but right now I can't. but one day I will be.
Okay, that brings me into an interesting thing of sources of the Force and where you draw that power from. I think the idea is that the Sith draw their power from passion and emotion and feeling, and that Jedi draw it from an absence of those. It's like harmony and peace and serenity within yourself, and then that allows you to manipulate the world around you.
Typically, it's passion, emotion, and feeling, but all very much directed from a place of great hatred. Hate's a very key word.
Okay, yeah. So that's that, and then with the Jedi, was I mostly on the ball?
Yeah.
Like it's like an absence of emotion almost. Like you have to have peace, and then you can manipulate.
There's some serenity.
And I don't think it's an absence of emotion. It's like, okay, so you're experiencing this emotion. Let's say, you see someone kill one of your loved ones as a Jedi, and so it's you're angry, you're sad, you're in great pain right now, and it's choosing to not kill that person. It's okay, they've broken the law, they've done a bad thing, they've killed someone. I must now apprehend them, and it's I am devastated right now, but the right thing to do is to take this person in, not to kill them.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. A lot of the time in the prequel trilogy, we see these like Anakin and Obi-Wan in particular in like a great amount of distress, but he's able to still call on the light side of the Force using like ostensibly his power of serenity to feel not angry, but to be serene in spite of great war in front of him.
So this is where
and
I see where you're going.
Okay,
and I kind of want to go the same direction because I was thinking about this on the car drives past week. Obi-Wan is sort of, when you think about it, a reflection of almost a grey Jedi. He's able to have emotions, have feelings, feel compassion towards the things around him, and still have the peace of mind and restraint to not overreact and not tap into hatred.
Yes. So my point is that might be where the Jedi Code, or where it comes from and why it is the way it is, in order to have such mastery over the Force and be able to use it like that, you kind of have to train yourself out of having emotions. Otherwise, you'll just end up being a Sith.
I do want to state, because I think you guys know, I'm not sure if the audience know, I fucking love Obi-Wan. I fucking love Obi-Wan to the moon.
Oh, we know.
But whilst I think his reflection through his restraint and his compassion does sort of point to him being like a perfect example of a grey Jedi, where his weakness is then his belief in the system, his belief in democracy, and his belief in the Jedi Order as it was at the time. That's where
his allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. Sorry, that was a very long way of getting to my point that like, the Jedi Code might have come from that place of having no emotion so that they can use the Force because it's fucking hard to do.
Yeah, which then just feels like a misinterpretation.
Yes, so the Jedi Code might be a misinterpretation of what the truth is.
Exactly, and if the Sith Code is, if the dark side and the giving into everything is the easy way, and what you're talking about, the absolute suppression of what it means to be human is impossible. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And it seems like the cost of using it's like we want to use the Force at the cost of being like human and feeling human emotions.
I feel like this ties back to a theme that we've been talking a lot about already, of there's always going to be a great darkness, and you always have to find the light within yourself to fight it. And that's like, you see this, and we're going to have this reflection even by having Sidious come back. There's a bunch of Sidious clones. There's always going to be that evil there, but you have to know how to come back, fight it, not step over that line.
And I think this is where the Luke Skywalker of it all comes into it. Ignoring all of those things and then delving too much into the things that Bryce is talking about, or delving in too far into things that Sandro is talking about, is like you lose compassion either way. And if you lose compassion, how are you meant to care about fighting for anyone? How are you meant to, do what is right or wrong and try and spread peace because you stop caring either way?
Yeah, it's like peace at the cost of being a human.
Yeah, it's like
it's like ultimate peace.
Yeah, you get too selfless, and you get too selfish.
It's a circle. It's like a political circle. It's like if you go so far around selflessness, you come back to being selfish.
Yeah.
And it's honestly probably why we keep falling on the idea of like fear being the thing that corrupts Ben and being like a key theme in the first film, because it seems like the right way to go, because it doesn't really include it's that selfishness, but it's selfishness towards something that you're compassionate about, fear of losing someone you love.
It's too much compassion. This is great.
This is heady.
I love
today.
this.
I very much enjoy it. I hope this isn't too like wishy-washy or anything for the audience.
It's absolutely wishy-washy, but I'm enjoying it.
On this note, then, I have a pitch for the dyad in this trilogy, which is one that I like. I was delving back through my journal, which I've been taking since like October last year, writing Star Wars ideas and stuff like that. And actually keeping track of dates and times. I had this in December, and I've never brought it up because I think I forgot about it. This is the problem with making a 33-page document where you just go and write random thoughts in. You don't reread it. So I had this idea that the dyad were like the first Jedi. They were a light and a dark. and there was not a soul Jedi. Or that perhaps, the first Jedi turned to the dark and they had a counterpart in the light to keep them in check. Now, this is not to say that balance means balancing your light and the dark. It's not to say that, balance was achieved by having a member in the dark side and a member in the Sith, but that if you have someone who has gone too far and you have someone in the dark, that there is a person there to balance them. They're not in conflict, but with peace. So it's as if to say that, Luke was Vader's balance, and perhaps that Rey could be Ben's, and a true dyad. They would be the first true dyad since perhaps the original.
Interesting.
Dyad.
And is the idea that she would bring him back to the light, or that they stay like that, light and dark?
Maybe not even. Maybe not bring him back. Maybe not stay light and dark. But if he, it begs on the question of can anyone come back? Because Vader might have come back, but here's the thing, and this is very explicit in the wording that Yoda says when he's training Ben and Dagobah. Yoda doesn't actually believe that redemption is possible. If once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny.
No, yeah, Yoda's still kind of locked into a lot of the more radical views of what the Jedi are, even when he's in Dagobah. I think a lot of what he teaches in Dagobah is some of the most profound and greatest things to look at when looking at what the true ideals of what the Force is. Yeah. But there's some stuff where he's like, no, you're a dark side. There's no good. You are lost.
What I find really interesting about that is, through his compassion, Ben was right. Ben was wiser. Sorry. Through his compassion, Luke was right. Luke was wiser than Yoda.
Oh, he proved Yoda wrong.
Yeah.
He's like, I redeemed Vader, and then Vader died. Which, by the way, as a writing decision, is perfect.
Yeah.
If you have someone who's that evil, you can redeem them and then kill them immediately.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's a good way to
write.
write.
Would have been a whole can of whoop ass
but
and mess.
And they tried to do that in Rise of Skywalker with Ben when they bring him back. It's like, hey,
but
he's a good guy.
Killed a bunch of people.
Exactly.
And
he's
he
a good
was
guy.
on Starkiller Base.
And then they killed him, which ostensibly is a good writing decision. But they made him cool and likable in that last kind of half-hour section of the movie, which is a bad writing decision. Yeah. Anyway.
So if it were the case of Rey and Ben, if, it's like, okay, so Ben has gone to the dark side. Maybe it's that, maybe Yoda kind of is right, that it's like, there will always be a darkness within him.
Okay.
But so long as he has an equal to keep him in check, essentially, he will never sway too far out of balance.
Maybe just leapfrogging over to the Chosen One thing real quick.
Okay, yep.
Because I put some thought into that.
We haven't even... Oh, God.
I feel
we haven't touched the Chosen One.
Do you want me to...
I know, I feel like the idea of the Chosen One is when they reference the idea of balance, it's someone finding great balance within themselves. Luke does this by fighting Vader and saving Vader. Teetering over that line, but finding control, finding restraint, finding compassion.
Yeah, and balance within himself.
And that's what a true Jedi should do. Not a grey Jedi, just like an actual proper Jedi.
The Jedi as we see them and how we believe they should be.
Yeah.
And in that moment in the original trilogy in Return of the Jedi, I feel like for me that's like the ultimate moment of this is what a true Jedi looks like, is redeeming Vader.
And he throws his lightsaber down and he just looks at the Emperor and he's like,
This is it, bitch. I'm a true Jedi like my father before me. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Quick thing on the Chosen One.
Okay, yeah,
so,
Chosen One stuff.
We can delve into that for a quick sec. I've said it before on this show, but maybe the audience doesn't know the actual prophecy. Do we want to know the Chosen One prophecy?
Have we read it out on the show?
I feel like we've read it out on the show
on the test episode we did.
No, let's do it.
Okay. As revealed in Master and Apprentice, that book from 2019, only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done by the Nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the entire galaxy. When the Force itself sickens, the past and future must split and combine. A Chosen One shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored.
So there's a lot of stuff that obviously I think, I read some analysis that was like, oh, here's the clone army. Here's,
Palpatine,
Anakin born to no father kind of stuff. Anything else I'm missing?
Oh, no, sacrifice many Jedi would be done by the sin of the Nameless, like probably Palpatine. When the egg cracks, it'll threaten the entire galaxy. That's probably the Sith. The Force sickens itself. That's when the Force, becomes unbalanced. And then the one that always confused me was the past and the future must split and combine. Is that talking about the generations of the Skywalkers, like Luke and Vader combining to defeat Palpatine?
I'm gonna draw some really thin strings.
Okay. All right.
Based off,
we're gonna have to make a new corkboard
off that analysis. Yeah, really, real thin strings, right in tiny little corkboard inside your corkboard.
Lightning round, Sandro. We're at the end of the show. We gotta wrap it up.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
I think the prophecy of the Chosen One, based off that, and based off what I just said of somebody who finds those ideals of what a perfect Jedi is, does not have to be one person. I think you can be a chosen one by finding the true ideals of what a Jedi is. I think Luke is a chosen one just as much as Vader is a chosen one. by the end of the film, overcoming that great darkness, both born without a father, if you think about it.
Why is Luke without a father?
Technically, yeah. Yeah, because he didn't have, his father around. He was raised by his aunt.
And also, the idea of Anakin Skywalker was already dead. When Anakin dies, when Vader is born.
Vader, right. Interesting. No, that is actually... That's
if you want to draw some really thin strings.
I like that read. I like that read, yeah.
Which is funny, because in canon, like, they still say Anakin is the chosen one, and George Lucas himself is like, no, Anakin
They
is the
do.
chosen one.
Yeah. And obviously this would just be like, fuck canon. But the idea of like anyone can find that balance within themselves, I think, is also a good message. And I think Rey can also fulfill that ideal of finding her chosen one just as much as Ben can.
Interesting. Yeah. I actually really like that. And my final note is that I read a lot of fantasy books, and the best prophecies are the ones that are, one, ambiguous, and two, can be read a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Those are the best prophecies. So having one clear answer to a prophecy, J.K. Rowling, you fuck. Sorry.
No, I agree. I
Neville.
think
it was Neville the whole time.
I just realized that it's Harry or Neville. They
it's a great prophecy. It sounds a bit pompous.
Yeah.
From the crack of an egg.
Yeah.
2 times.
The galaxy will split in twain.
Yeah. It's a bit wild, but it's a good prophecy because it's so vague and it keeps people.
I like the idea of us writing in a way that we can try and fit some of the prophecy stuff into it and still have it work and still have the prophecy kind of line up.
But I love the dyad. I want the dyad to work. I still think the dyad has a bunch of different ways of working. Also, because from the spawn of Rey and the spawn of Ben, the idea of these two families born of the Force having that connection.
The past and the present must split. I feel like there's something we could do with the dyad there. But that will have to wait for another episode, potentially our dyad episode, which is coming up soon. Maybe next episode, maybe not. You don't know. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But that has been our episode on the Jedi Order. Thank you so much for listening, watching, however you consume this content. We are available on every social media platform except Twitter, because I kind of don't believe in it anymore.
What's Twitter? Never heard of Twitter before.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean X. Soon to be XXX, the hardest social media website. Anyway, we can't go on that one right now. You can find us on Patreon. You can find us on social media. Please give us 5 stars on Spotify. Please.
Please.
But, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, may the Force be with you.